My son said I was too old, too slow, and too much of a burden. So he put me in a nursing home without my consent and moved into my house like I was already dead. But I wasn't confused. I wasn't finished. And while he thought I'd fade away quietly, I was planning something else. Something he'd feel every time he stepped out onto his porch, every time he opened his blinds, every time he looked out the kitchen window and saw me, sitting right next door. But let me take you back to where it started. My name is Margaret Turner. I raised my son Eric on my own after my husband passed away when Eric was just 5. I worked double shifts at the diner, cleaned houses on weekends, skipped meals more often than I'd ever admit. I pawned my wedding ring to pay for his college books. I never complained. I just figured love would come back around when it mattered most. So, when I collapsed in my kitchen that Tuesday morning, I thought it was just my blood sugar. I'd skipped breakfast again. Old habits die hard. Eric rushed over that evening with his wife, Alyssa. They looked concerned. Too concerned. "Mama," Eric said, "we just want what's best for you." Alyssa stood behind him, nodding like she'd practiced it in the mirror. They brought soup, asked where I kept my insurance papers, and kept telling me how hard it must be to keep up with the house at my age. I didn't think much of it at the time. I should have. Because the following week, they invited me out for lunch. Said it was just the 3 of us. "You deserve a break," Eric said. "We're going to spoil you." I didn't pack a bag, didn't bring my phone charger, didn't wear my good shoes. They dropped me off at a facility that smelled like bleach and stale air. Beige walls, plastic flowers, a nurse with tired eyes waiting by the door. "Just for a few days," Eric smiled. "Rest up. We'll check on you soon." He hugged me like he meant it. Alyssa kissed my cheek with the lips that felt like ice. And then they left. No goodbye. No explanation. They never came back. I sat on the edge of that unfamiliar bed in a room with no calendar, no photos, no books. Just a dresser and a twin-size bed I didn't choose. I asked the nurse for a phone. She said, "You'll have to wait until visiting hours." I told her, "My son just left." She looked confused and then pulled out a clipboard. My name, Eric's signature. Boxes checked, medical consent, residential placement, long-term care. He'd signed me away. Just like that. I sat on that stiff mattress like it might swallow me whole. The room was too quiet. The kind of quiet that doesn't feel peaceful. Just abandoned. I folded my hands in my lap like I was in church and tried not to shake. But I shook anyway. The next morning, I asked to speak with the administrator. I told her there must be a mistake. I'm not sick. I'm not confused. I don't belong here. She gave me a look like I was a ghost asking to come back to life. "Your son said you're not safe on your own," she said. "He mentioned confusion spells, that this would be your long-term placement." Long-term? Something cracked inside me. But I didn't scream. Because somewhere deep down I knew that screaming would only make me look crazy. And that's exactly what they wanted. So I waited. For 3 days, I sat in that room while the walls closed in like a slow punishment. I tried calling Eric. Straight to voicemail. Tried Alyssa. Blocked. The same woman who once cried in my kitchen about how hard her marriage was had blocked me like I was junk mail. I watched the other residents shuffle through the halls, some drooling, some yelling at the air, some just staring into nothing. And I thought, is this what my life is now? Is this how I end? Forgotten, discarded, unseen. No, that wasn't going to be my ending. I didn't survive losing a husband, raising a child alone, beating breast cancer, and working till my hands bled. To fade out like this. That night, I asked the night nurse for a pen and a notebook. She smiled gently and brought me a little spiral one from the activities closet. I didn't write poems, I didn't write prayers. I wrote war, dates, bank account numbers, property deeds, people I could still call, including one woman who hadn't heard from me in years, but never took me off her client list. Charlotte Bell, my old attorney. Sharp as a tack and loyal to the bone, I scribbled like my life depended on it. Because it did. Eric and Alyssa thought I wouldn't notice the bank account freeze. Thought I wouldn't realize my name had disappeared from the electric bill. Thought they could change the locks and call it kindness. But I wasn't confused. I was calculating. They thought I was finished. I was just getting started. Charlotte didn't answer on the first call. Can't say I blamed her. It had been years, but I left a message. Short, sharp, and deliberate. Charlotte, this is Margaret Turner. My son has committed fraud in my name and placed me in a facility without my consent. I still have access to our joint account and legal documents. Call me. She called me back before lunch the next day. Her voice was clipped but concerned. Mrs. Turner, are you safe? As safe as a woman can be when her only child locks her away and thinks she won't bite back. She went quiet. Then she said the words I'd been waiting to hear. Tell me everything. So I did. By that Friday, Charlotte drove 3 hours in the pouring rain, walked through the front door of the facility like she owned it, and told the nurse she was my legal counsel. The staff started fidgeting. The administrator looked pale. They tried to explain. Said they were acting in my best interest. Said Eric had given them clear instructions. Charlotte wasn't having any of it. She stepped into my room, dropped her soaked coat over the chair, opened her briefcase, and looked at me with eyes that could cut glass. You're not staying here another week, she said. And if they give us trouble, we sue. It was the first deep breath I'd taken in days. We combed through everything, page by page. The power of attorney? Forged. The deed to the house? Still in my name, and only mine. The bank account? He thought I'd forgotten it existed. I hadn't. I just hadn't spoken yet. You want to go nuclear? Charlotte asked. I looked her dead in the eye. No, I said. I want to go biblical. And that's exactly what we did. We filed an emergency motion to revoke the forged POA. Attached to it was a signed mental capacity evaluation, done by the facility's own doctor, who told me in private, "You don't belong here, Mrs. Turner. Not even close." Charlotte opened a legal case against Eric for elder abuse, financial exploitation, and misrepresentation. She froze the accounts he was using to pay his new mortgage. I walked out of that nursing home on a rainy Wednesday afternoon with a borrowed coat, a small duffel bag, and my head held high. No goodbyes, no farewell hugs, just a slow, steady walk through the doors they never thought I'd walk out of. But I wasn't going home. Not yet. Charlotte booked us into a quiet suite for the weekend while we worked out the next move. Eric didn't know I was out, but he would. Oh, he would. By Sunday, we'd filed a petition to force a partition sale of the house. Because Eric was living in a home he didn't legally own, and I hadn't given consent for him to stay. If he refuses to leave, Charlotte said, we let the sheriff do the talking. And here's the part no one saw coming. Charlotte and I didn't rush. That's the trick with real revenge. You don't throw it like a tantrum. You serve it quiet, chilled, and with a steady hand. We waited until the paperwork was processed. Waited until the court officially ordered the sale of the house. And then, I made my move. I didn't ask for my keys back. I didn't want that house anymore. I bought the one next door instead. A small one-story cottage with a rose bush by the porch and a back deck that faced straight into Eric's kitchen window. Paid in full. No mortgage. No apology. Charlotte handled the paperwork. I signed the deed with a pen that shook slightly in my hand. Not from weakness, but from the sheer satisfaction of what I was about to do. I didn't tell Liam yet. My sweet grandson. He deserved a clean moment, one not muddied by adult mess. This one? This one was mine. The first morning I moved in, I wore my Sunday hat and sat on the front steps with a glass of sweet tea. Just sat. Didn't stare. Didn't gloat. Just existed. And then the screen door next door creaked open. Eric stepped outside in wrinkled gym shorts, holding a trash bag in one hand and his phone in the other. He froze. I smiled. He turned right back around and slammed the door. I didn't move. I had waited far too long for that view. Over the next few days, Alyssa avoided eye contact. She parked on the far end of the driveway, pulled the curtains tighter. But me? I was just getting comfortable. I started planting roses along the fence. Deep red ones. The kind that bloom like fire. Charlotte called it petty. I called it peaceful warfare. Every morning I sat on my porch and waved at the mailman, chatted with the neighbors they used to ignore, brought banana bread to the couple I'd sold the old house to. And every evening, I watched Eric through the blinds as he tried his best not to see me. Alyssa's car started leaving earlier. Some nights she didn't come back at all. Eric stayed inside, lights flickering at 2 a.m. TV on, curtains closed. I didn't need to imagine what their conversation sounded like. Because one afternoon, Liam showed up. Backpack slung low, shoulders a little too heavy for a 14-year-old. He hesitated at the gate, then crossed it and knocked gently on my door. I opened it slowly. "Grandma," he said, "can I sit with you a while?" I didn't ask questions. I just opened the screen and let him in. We sat on the porch side by side. I poured him a glass of iced tea, just like I used to when he was little and scared of thunderstorms. He didn't say much at first. Then he whispered, "I heard what they did. I'm sorry." I didn't respond. I just looked at him. "They told me you had dementia," he continued. "Said you weren't safe, but you don't look confused to me." I smiled softly. I never was. He leaned in. "Why'd you buy the house next door?" I took a slow sip of my tea. "Because your father needed a reminder. One he could see every single day." He snorted. "You're colder than I thought, Grandma." And I laughed. A deep, full laugh I hadn't heard from myself in years. "No, baby. I'm just done pretending I owe anyone my silence." That night, he stayed for dinner. Said he missed my sweet potatoes. Said his mama never learned how to season anything properly. I didn't ask about their marriage. Didn't have to. Some storms speak for themselves. The next morning, there was a knock at my door. It was Eric. Hat in hand, eyes lowered, looking like a boy about to lie. "Why are you doing this?" he asked. I didn't stand, didn't flinch, just looked him in the eye. "Doing what?" "Living here, watching us." I tilted my head. "I bought this house because I liked the view." He swallowed hard. "You're trying to humiliate me." I shook my head, calm as Sunday. "No, Eric, that part already happened. You did that when you called me a burden." He said nothing. So I stood, slow and steady. I raised you alone, carried you through storms you never even saw. And when I needed help, you left me in a room full of strangers and called it mercy. Called it love. He opened his mouth. I cut him off. "You didn't think. You erased. You assumed I wouldn't fight back." And that was his silence. Finally, I walked to the door. "This is my piece now. Don't knock unless you plan to earn your way back into it." Then I closed it gently behind me. I didn't cry. I didn't tremble. I just sat back in my chair and watched the roses bloom. Because the view had never looked better. Some people think closure comes when someone says, "I'm sorry." I don't believe that. I believe closure comes when you can sit in silence and finally feel nothing where pain used to live. When the people who hurt you no longer control your breath, your sleep, or your peace. That silence, that's what I woke up to every morning. The roses I planted were blooming brighter. My kitchen smelled like cinnamon toast and lemon polish. I had started painting again. Small canvases at first. Then one morning, I painted my old house from memory. Except this time, I filled the windows with fog. Because that's what it had become. A beautiful place haunted by people who couldn't see clearly. Eric had stopped speaking to me. Not a word since that morning on my porch. Sometimes I'd see him step outside to get the mail or take out the trash. But he never looked my way. He didn't have to. He could feel me there. The same way I once felt his absence in that cold nursing home when I wondered if my only child had truly abandoned me. Now he was the one sitting in silence. Now he was the one carrying the weight. But I wasn't finished yet. Because this story was never just about revenge. It was about legacy. It was about making sure that what happened to me wouldn't happen to another woman who gave everything for her family and was tossed aside like a broken chair. So I called Charlotte, told her I was ready. She helped me draw up a new will, line by line, exactly the way I wanted. Eric? Got nothing. Not a penny, not a keepsake, not a single signature. The house I now lived in, willed entirely to Liam on his 21st birthday. Until then, a trust would cover his school, his food, his books, his future. The rest, every cent of my retirement savings, the money from the house sale, the old insurance policy I'd forgotten I even had, all of it would go towards something I called the Turner Legacy Fund, a grant for women like me, women discarded by the very children they raised, women who just needed one more hand to pull them back into dignity. I made the first donation myself, $50,000, anonymous. I didn't want credit, just change. Liam helped me drop off the check at the community center. He asked me, "Grandma, why don't you put your name on it?" I smiled. Because the women who need this don't care who gave it. They just need to know someone did. He nodded, thoughtful as always. That Sunday, Eric came to my porch again. I was baking sweet potato pie. The smell must have pulled him out like a memory he couldn't shake. He stood there for a long moment before knocking. I opened the door, wiped my hands on a towel, and waited. "Danielle's not coming back," he said, staring at the floor. I said nothing. "I tried to fix it," he added. "Everything just fell apart." Still, I said nothing. Then he looked up, and for a brief second, I saw the boy I used to hold against my chest during storms. The one who clung to me when the thunder got too loud. "I messed up, Mama," he said, voice cracking like the walls he'd built around himself. "I thought I was doing the right thing. I was scared. I didn't want to lose everything trying to take care of you." I looked at him, steady. "You didn't take care of me," I said quietly. "You got rid of me." He nodded, the truth finally settling on his shoulders. I was wrong. I waited a beat. Then I said the thing that needed to be said. Not for him, but for me. "You thought you could bury me, Eric, but you didn't know what I had left in me. You forgot what I gave up to build that house. To keep your lights on, to keep your belly full, to raise you with more than I ever had." He dropped his gaze again. "I didn't forget," he whispered. I tried to rewrite the ending." I nodded once. "Liam is safe with me. He can stay as long as he needs, but you've got some soul-searching to do. And you won't do it on this porch." Then I turned and went inside. I didn't slam the door. Didn't cry. I just let the scent of pie fill the house and set the table for two. A few minutes later, Liam came down the stairs. "Was that him?" he asked. I nodded. "What did he say?" I looked at my grandson. Nothing I hadn't already heard in my heart. Then I smiled. But it's not my job to carry him anymore. He sat at the table and grinned. "I'm glad you're my grandma." And I said, through the softest, fullest smile I'd had in years, "Me too, baby. Me too." Outside, Eric sat on his porch again, alone. And I let him. Because once you reclaim your peace, you don't hand it back to anyone who tried to bury it. It had been 3 weeks since Alyssa left. No hugs, no goodbyes, just a trunk full of boxes and a mouth pressed shut. She didn't glance at Eric once. Just got in her car and drove like the road was pulling her out of her own mistakes. That evening, Eric sat outside for hours. No music, no wine, just him. And the echo of everything he destroyed. I thought for a second about walking over, about offering him a sliver of what he never gave me. But I didn't, because his silence wasn't mine to fix. Later that night, Liam knocked on my door again. "She's gone," he said. Didn't even say goodbye. I let him in, made cocoa, and let him sit on the couch while the soft jazz played in the background. He stared at the wall, quiet. "I don't get it," he said finally. "They had everything." I looked at him. "No, baby, they took everything, but they built it on lies. That never lasts." He nodded slowly. "Can I stay here tonight?" I blinked. "Of course, anytime." That weekend, he stayed with me the whole time. We made pancakes on Saturday, painted flower pots on Sunday. He laughed, really laughed. And in that laugh, I heard the future. Not the one Eric tried to control. The one Liam would get to build. Honest, open, and full of light. Monday morning, I found a certified letter in my mailbox. It was from Charlotte, the final copy of my will. Neatly notarized, clear, precise, unshakable, everything in order. Eric? Nothing. Liam? The house when he turns 21, and a trust to support him until then. The rest? The Turner Legacy Fund, fully endowed. A grant program to help older women in crisis. The kind of women who'd been called too much. Too old. A burden. I smiled as I read it, and whispered quietly to myself, not anymore. Eric found out 2 months later when he contacted Charlotte asking about the estate. Just to be informed. She told him, politely but clearly, "You're not included." He called me that night. "Mom," he said, "is this real?" "Yes." "You're cutting me out completely?" "No," I said calmly. "You did that all by yourself. The day you signed me away like luggage and sold my things before I was even cold." He went silent. I said I was sorry. And I said I forgave you. But forgiveness doesn't mean inheritance. Then I hung up. That was the last time we spoke. A month later, he moved out. No U-Haul, no goodbye. Just a for sale sign that faded in the sun. The neighbors said he left town. Florida, maybe. No one really cared to confirm. The day he left, I sat on my porch with a cup of jasmine tea, looked out at the quiet street, and felt nothing but peace. Liam came outside with 2 muffins. "He's gone," he said. I nodded. "Sometimes people leave," I said, "when they realize they can't control the narrative anymore." "You think he'll ever come back?" "Maybe. But if he does, he'll find a fence that wasn't there before." I looked out at the garden. The roses were blooming. The tomatoes had sprouted. Bees danced through the marigolds like they'd found home. Later that year, the community center invited me to speak. An elder justice seminar. Topic: financial abuse, power of attorney scams, reclaiming your legal rights. I stood in front of that room, mostly women, mostly over 60, and I told the truth. They will call you old. They will call you a burden. They will smile while stealing the life you built. But let me tell you something. There is power in the truth. There is power in silence. And there is power in the law, if you're brave enough to use it. They clapped. Some cried. One hugged me so tight I thought she'd break. "Thank you," she whispered, "for reminding me I'm not crazy." That's what it was really about. Not just revenge, but redemption and legacy. Making sure our stories don't disappear just because we can't carry groceries anymore. Making sure we are seen. I went home that night to my little house. The one they thought was a downgrade. But it wasn't smaller. It was freer. It was lighter. Liam set the table. Asked if we could bake cookies later. And I realized I wasn't at the end of anything. I was finally at the beginning. They sent me to a nursing home and called me a burden. But I gave them a burden they'll never shake. And that is what justice sounds like. If this story reminds you of your own silence, struggle, and worth, know that you are not alone. At Her Side of the Story, we tell the truth behind every scar. Subscribe to hear more voices that were never meant to be silenced. Because every woman deserves to be heard.